Hey there, it's Matthew Decker with Leverage Wealth Management and Cash Value Life Insurance Reviews. Today, I'm joined by my business partner and best friend, Aaron Vincent. Aaron, say hello.
Hello.
Aaron and I have been working together for about 5 years now, and I'd say that we've been really close friends, if not maybe best friends, for probably the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And the reason that I wanted to kind of bring you onto the program and introduce you to everybody is because most people know us for the Cash Value Life Insurance reviews that we do, but they don't know that we actually run two separate businesses that have two distinct purposes. And so I thought it would be a great opportunity to introduce you to the world and make sure that people know that, you know, we do a lot more than just one thing. And I thought it would be fun to kind of tell our backstory. I'll start and maybe we can just kind of do it together in stages. So, so I went to Illinois State University, kind of in the middle of Illinois. I double majored in insurance and finance. That's where I met my wife, Kate, and she majored in education. And Aaron, you went to school where?
Yeah, my college experience was way different than most. I actually started off thinking that I wanted to be a doctor and thinking I wanted to play college basketball.
Yeah.
And so those are the two things I went off to college, small school in Central Missouri. After that first year of doing both those things, a pre-med biology major and playing college basketball, I knew what I didn't want anymore. That was a rough year. And so from there, I actually moved back to my hometown. My wife and I got married. Then we moved to Georgia, where we kind of took off from there with the rest of our college. So it was...
What age did you guys get married?
Let's see, she was 19 and I had just turned 21.
Okay.
We got married. So yeah, I was married for most of my college experience.
Which is pretty unique.
It is.
So Kate and I got married right out of school. So we were 20, 22, 23.
Still young.
Still young. And I feel like we had kids young too, but you guys beat us to the punch by a couple of years. So what was it like working your way through college?
Yeah, it was very different from the rest of my friends. You know, it was most of my friends at that point were talking about, you know, what intramural sports and what time the game was and what they were doing that night. I'm thinking, you know, I've got my wife and I, we actually also bought a townhome. So we lived in a townhome on our university campus, or near it, I should say. And so I did some of the things, and I definitely played intramural sports and had some of those things going on, but it was only 2 years later. So I was a junior when we actually had our oldest daughter. She's 15 now.
Oh, wow.
But so yeah, it was just, I was working multiple jobs. I was kind of grinding through college because I didn't know what I wanted to do. You know, I think you mentioned.
I don't think I did mention yet.
All right. Well, maybe you should, your career.
Okay. Yeah. So I had a much more traditional college experience, double major in finance and insurance. And throughout college, I had an internship tied to my major and very much like kind of the typical path that one might take, I guess, trying to get that internship, trying to get the job at kind of the local, big corporation, which I ended up doing, but certainly, no kids and no marriage, very much just kind of focused on school and work.
Yeah. So for me, I had no idea what I thought I wanted. I learned pretty quickly I didn't want. And so it took me a couple of years to kind of figure out from there, what was I going to chase down? What was going to be my career, what I wanted to focus on. And even after finishing college with the business degree, I still didn't know. So I kind of left college expecting to be in the business world, but to what avenue, I had no idea. So I started off in different sales roles, did some real estate, relocation stuff for a while. I sold pharmaceuticals, and I kind of came to realize that at least in both of those worlds, I was going to have to kind of sell my soul, or at least be traveling nonstop, and in order to make it, as they would say. And so I kind of got a little bit burnt out on that reality. And then 08, 09 happened, and the job market was kind of dry anyway. So I kind of got to start fresh.
Yeah. And my experience was quite a bit different in that, right out of college, you kind of didn't know what industry you wanted to be in. I had a pretty good idea that I wanted to be in the finance space. And the timing of my graduation also kind of lined up with not the best job market. And I ended up working for a property and casualty insurer straight out of college as a baby-faced 23-year-old.
Door to door, probably, huh?
Yeah. Doing, door to door. Can I help you with your home and auto insurance? And gosh, I hated it. I hated it so much.
I can imagine. Yeah.
The only thing that kept me doing it was, at the time, my wife was teaching, and every single morning, she would just wake up in tears because she hated her job. She was in probably the toughest school district, definitely in our county. And that's actually the reason that you and I ended up meeting is because my wife lost her job. For those of you who don't know, in education, this is part of, I believe it was the No Child Left Behind Act, where they basically set standardized levels for school districts in terms of meeting yearly testing standards. And if a school doesn't meet its yearly testing standards for a certain number of years in a row, every year there's like a consequence, right? There's specific action steps that you have to take. Well, if you don't meet your standards enough years in a row, one of those things is you got to fire teachers. And my wife was, I think, one of 2 non-tenured teachers in the school district. And so she was let go because they didn't hit their required education standards, which is, horrifying that that's the answer,
right?
Especially considering, you would think, wow, we're way off on a tangent, but you would think that the new teachers would have the most energy and the most zeal for, the kids and doing new stuff and trying new things. But no, they're going to protect the teachers that have been there, 40 years, who probably haven't changed their lesson plans in 30, at the expense of the young ones, which that's a whole nother issue. But ultimately she lost her job, and that was in Illinois, as I said. And that was the catalyst for us actually moving here to Atlanta. I had a friend here. I used his address on my resume, and I started getting calls from headhunters, and that's how we ultimately ended up here. You also have an interesting story on how you ended up here.
Yeah. So we, after that year of college I mentioned, where I knew what I didn't want to do anymore, my wife and I went to 1 year of school together in Central Missouri, and then both kind of decided that wasn't the place for us anymore. It was a great place to grow up, family, and a lot of friends are still there, and it's beautiful. It's a great place to be, but we knew we didn't want to stay there our whole lives. Small town. We wanted some adventure, something different. We had some friends that were actually moving to the Atlanta area to start a church, of all things. And so we started to do some research on Atlanta, and it sounded like this big adventure, thing. We had a 5-year plan. Let's go to Atlanta. We'll help with that, finish school, and take it from there. So moved to Atlanta, helped start that church, had a great experience, loved the city, and ultimately that's where we kind of put some roots down, and we're still here 15, 16 years later. But unlike your experience where you knew early on that you wanted to be somewhere in the financial services realm, even though guidance counselors, parents, and friends even made comments, I can recall times having conversations about, people suggesting me to go the route of financial services. I don't know what they saw in me, but the one thing I knew I didn't want was that there was a stigma attached to it.
Yep.
Kind of the old sort of stale office intimidation, suits and mahogany walls, and just this stigma I didn't want to have anything to do with. Maybe I was an immature, naive 20-something-year-old who was just projecting, inaccurately onto that. But I
think you were pretty close to
probably pretty close. Yeah. Actually, several years later, being in this world now, it is unfortunately a reality for some. But as I mentioned, the job market, 08, 09, and what all happened. And so I was at a current job that I realized was headed nowhere.
Yeah.
And I kept getting these phone calls from a recruiter. And he was recruiting me to a financial services firm.
Same recruiter that actually found me.
Exactly, which is where we met. But I turned him down at least 3 or 4 times. All he had to say was financial services, and I said, no, I'm not interested. Little did I know, that several years later, not only would we have a great career together at that firm, learned a lot of things, and moved on to start our own. So here we are.
So I actually think that's a good teaser and a good place to pause. Let's stop there with just kind of our backstory. And when we come back, let's pick it up with our experience at the wholesaler.
Sounds good.